Okay. Airfield is clear. F-86 coming up. Hopefully, I don't think he sees me. Oh wait, he does see me. Good grief, guys. I'm gonna back off while you get him. What? What was that? Are you kidding me? Okay, maybe this guy can help me out once he lands. Or not. Oh my goodness. What is this? Okay. I don't know. Maybe there's one more chance. There's still me, right? If I can just get this thing to stop it. Wait a minute. Oh no. Dude, really? Okay, I'll make it fair. I'll just J out and not respawn. We have lost. We have failed.
We have failed the Rodina. We have failed ourselves.
Howdy folks, Sauber here. Welcome back to the channel. I'm finally getting around to it. The video for the Mikhail Igorevich MiG-19 PT, aka the People's Fighter. Now the reason I call it the People's Fighter like I did with the MiG-17 video is because the Chinese prominently used their own versions of the MiG-17 and MiG-19. I do not remember off the top of my head what their official designations were in Chinese service, but nonetheless. So the MiG-19 is by far my favorite Rank VI jet fighter, second only to the F-100 in terms of appearance, but MiG-19, I have to admit, is a really reliable jet. Now, it doesn't turn as well as the F-100, that's apparent, but at least it has good speed and climb rate to go for it. And I have to mention just briefly, it's interesting how with each succession of the MiG, from the MiG-15 onwards, until, of course, the MiG-19, from the MiG-15 to the MiG-19, their wings just got more and more swept, and if you go up the family tree, so to speak, they get less and less sweep. So interesting there. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it with the MiG-19. Let's change the color scheme real quick. And we're off. Alrighty. So going back to the MiG-19 with its performance, as I mentioned earlier, it is not the best turn fighter. I mean, it can do, like, it can turn decently, but its roll rate is meh at such high speeds. And that rudder, as some of you may know, is just a meme at high speed. I mean, I even saw a skin on live.warthunder.com where someone took the default skin of the MiG-17 and just painted on the tail rudder for display only, and I thought this is hilarious with the Wait, did I say MiG-17? Oh my goodness, the MiG-19. Excuse me, my bad. But just look at this moment. How majestic this jet is. I mean, two jet engines that produce roughly the amount of same thrust as the F-100. I mean, it's not exactly the same, and it's two engines, but the MiG-19, I believe, is lighter in weight than the F-100. So it has that to go for it. And to deviate a little, I didn't even notice this during the battle, but when I checked the replay, I noticed that one of our allied MiG-19s team killed a MiG-17. And I don't show it here in the footage, but I thought, what the heck happened? And it turns out what had happened was he launched an air-to-air missile, presumably targeting an enemy aircraft, but because an allied aircraft got in the way, the missile targeted the allied fighter instead. I know, feels bad, man. I've had it happen to me where I've accidentally team killed somebody, and where I've been team killed by accident, and I have to admit, it's quite embarrassing, but it happens. You might ask, how can this happen? They're air-to-air missiles. Shouldn't they know friend from foe? Well, you are partially right, but that's with radar-guided missiles. See, the missiles we have in War Thunder at this moment on the MiG-19, the Javelin, and the F-100 are heat-seeking, meaning they'll lock onto anything with a high temperature and high heat source. And that means it could be, you could even aim it at the sun and it would lock on. I personally have not tried launching, I've locked onto the sun by accident and on purpose, but I have yet to try to launch a missile while locking onto the sun. Now, my best guess is that it would just simply fly in towards the sun until it ran out of fuel. But all in all, if there's another heat source in the way of your target, chances are that missile will lock onto it instead of your original target. Now, in some cases, that actually turned out to be a good thing. For example, there was one battle where I was targeting an F-100, but there was an F-86 just ahead of them, and they were all going after an allied MiG-17. I launched my missile intending to hit the F-100 because I knew he could launch missiles at our 17, whereas the Sabre could obviously get the 17, but at least I would get the biggest threat, which was the F-100, thanks to its missile loadout. Well, I launched my missile, and I guess the F-100 either just decided to turn away, or he knew that my missile was inbound, and he pulled away. Meanwhile, I guess my missile locked onto the F-86 instead, as originally. In other words, it locked onto the F-86 when I thought it was locking onto the F-100, so when the F-100 turned, it did not throw the missile off its trajectory, but rather it continued on course to the oblivious Sabre pilot, and he went kaboom. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Certainly wasn't expecting that, but it was a rather nice victory to achieve and to witness that. That was really cool. And I thought it was here. I can't remember if it's in this battle or the one afterwards, but at one point an enemy missile locks onto me, and I didn't see it till the last moment. I like jerked the stick, so to speak, jerked the stick back and pulled away, and it like, the missile like flew right past my cockpit. It was scary. But anyway, going back to the MiG-19, focusing on its performance, once you're in the turn, so to speak, you can turn decently, although obviously not as well as the F-100, but at least you can make some steady turns and still maintain some speed. And as a general form of advice, be it if you're in the MiG-19 or the F-100, you generally do not want to get involved in a head-on. I mean, sure, with the MiG-19 you have two giant 30 mils, and with the F-100 you have 4 20 mils, but sometimes it doesn't work out too well, as with any head-on. I tried when I got the MiG-19, I thought, hey, I got big guns, I'm gonna try to snipe someone in a head-on, and sure, I got them, but they got me too. So I was like, yeah, I'll try to avoid head-ons unless I absolutely have to, or if I'm just really, really desperate for a victory. Oh, and as you've probably noticed, this replay was recorded before they removed that stupid pilot injury mechanic. And I mean, sure, to some, it might be realistic, but a bunch of players, including myself, just hated it. I mean, War Thunder has even said themselves, and they kept their promise true in the end when they removed that ridiculous feature, and that is, War Thunder is a video game. And thus, as a video game, in some circumstances, not in every circumstance, but in some circumstances, they are willing to forego historical accuracy in order to make the gameplay and mechanics fair and fun to enjoy. And, of course, balanced. So, of course, War Thunder, I guess, cannot model entire detailed damage models to the pilot, unlike the aircraft and tanks themselves. Because, like, in other games I have seen where they've simulated a damage model towards the human player, they could tell you, like, oh, your left arm is yellow, meaning light damage, or it's red for heavy damage, or maybe your foot was injured, that sort of thing, detailed. But in War Thunder, if your pilot is wounded, his whole body, his or her whole body just turns yellow, orange, red, or black. Well, if it turns black, you're dead. But then at the same time, I guess you could still keep flying if you had a dead crew member, if, of course, it was multi-crew. Like, you know, you had multiple pilots. Now, that brings me to an interesting question. Mainly in the case for bombers. I mean, you already have the benefit of having two pilots, so that if one gets knocked out, then at least you still have the other one. But in some bombers, there are other crew members that are situated near the cockpit. So if both pilots were taken out, could an additional crew member, say a gunner, take the controls in place of the pilot? Now, I don't know if maybe those additional crew members had any flight training, like they knew how to fly a plane in case the pilots were knocked out. I don't know. And if such a mechanic would be implemented, could they make it to where, you know, obviously you could only do it so many times, or maybe it's only limited to one or two additional crew members? I don't know, but that makes me curious. Could an aircraft gunner take the controls if they had to? It is quite an interesting question, nonetheless. But anyway, so another thing I like about the MiG-19 is that while it does get less missiles, its speed helps compensate for it. And as I've mentioned earlier, its speed is just amazing compared to the F-100. And that, although the F-100 sure turns well, I don't know if it's because I don't have it fully upgraded or what, but it just seems to have trouble getting up to speed, and then it can maintain speed once you get up to it, no problem, but the acceleration is a bit of a yawn. But the MiG-19, it's barely a minute after takeoff, and I'm already up to 530 miles per hour, and just look at that. Just look at that. Man, I'm already up to 5,000 feet, and I will not stop. And I'm still maintaining decent high speed, too. I've only just now dropped below 480 miles per hour. I'm still climbing. Still climbing. And around this point, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, or maybe it's around 15,000 feet, I level off to gain some more speed. And then the rest is just history. I'm already well above the other F-100s and F-86s. It's just the MiG-19 is such a joy to fly. And at some point later in this video, you'll see me get to almost 30,000 feet. I have to admit, I've never had a jet that has been able to get up to 30,000 feet and maintain a substantial speed. I mean, the highest altitude I've ever climbed in was in the CL-13 at almost 40,000 feet, and oh my goodness, it like struggles to maintain its flight. And you might wonder, Sauber, what were you doing so high? Well, let me tell you. it was me and another CL-13 plus another ally. I forgot what the ally was playing. I think it was a GDR MiG-15. And me and the CL had to intercept this SO 4050 Vautour. And it was one of those bomber pilots that climbed to space. And yeah. So we did blind hunt and we caught him. But he was already by then at like 25,000 feet and still climbing. 10 minutes go by, and so finally we're close to his altitude, 35,000 feet, and we thought, great, he's gonna continue to outpace us, but we don't stop, of course. We continue our pursuit. Finally we get to like 39,000 feet and then 40,000 feet, and we're barely going above 200 miles an hour. We were going like so slow. And then my allied CL-13 gets a crit on him, but runs out of ammo. And then I come in and get the finishing touch. I get the kill. So that was a ton of fun. Thankfully we didn't have to wait that long. There was like 30 minutes still left on the clock, but it could have been worse. Like there was one battle I was in my ME-410 and it took us forever to catch this B-17 on Norway. I didn't get him because I wanted to focus on water targets, but one of our 109s was able to get that B-17, and I was scared that we were going to lose the match by points. And we only had, like, I kid you not, 3 minutes left on the clock. It was one of the most awful matches I had ever played. I mean, I got a good kill count, 2 planes and I forget how many ground targets. I think it was like 15 plus, something like that. But it could have been over for us real easily if we had not caught him when we did. So that was nice. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is recently, as some of you may know, War Thunder recently announced that they will be adding Rank VII tanks. Yeah. Crazy, isn't it? It feels like yesterday they added Rank VI tanks back in November of 2017. Now, I'm not going to talk too deeply about it just yet. I want to wait and see what other tanks they'll plan on adding for Rank 7. At the time of the making of this video, so far they have announced the T-80U and the Challenger 2. Not to be confused with the Challenger 1 Mark II. But I'm going to save that topic for my next video, which will compare the M1 Abrams and the T-80 and T-64 with the new shell penetration value calculations. But one thing that got my attention from the discussion about the Rank 7 tanks is that some players were speculating, well, hey, if they're going to add Rank 7 tanks, that means there's a possibility of Rank 7 jets, right? And that is true. But I think we need to digress here, and here's why. War Thunder is now announcing Rank 7 tanks to come in the next update for update 1.87, but we need to look back when Rank 6 tanks were introduced. November of 2017, a little over 2 years ago. Now, that's quite a bit of a time frame for them to add some Rank 6 tanks to fill up to what it is, to fill up the lineups to what they are now, and now they are able to, with confidence, add Rank 7 tanks. Now, on the other hand, with Rank 6 jets, it's another story. Or Rank 7 jets, that's another story. Rank 6 jets were just introduced just a couple of months ago, back in December of 2018. So Rank 6 jets are still young. And on top of that, I'm really curious as to what other Rank 6 jets they'll add for the not just the nations that already have them, but for the other nations. Now, at the time of the making of this video, so far the only Rank 6 jet confirmed for 1.87 is for the Germans with the MiG-19S. Now, the MiG-19S is going to be a really interesting plane for the Germans in Rank 6. Now, the key difference between the MiG-19S and the MiG-19 PT is that unlike the PT, the MiG-19S has a third 30mm cannon stationed in the nose. Now you might think, great, something better than the MiG-19 PT. Am I right? You'd be wrong. Not so fast. There is a trade-off. What is that trade-off? It does not have air-to-air missiles. Feels bad, man. Now granted, it is historical though. But, as developers have said, there is another bonus that the S has over the PT despite the absence of air-to-air missiles. It has air-to-ground armament. It has air-to-ground rockets and conventional bombs. So that'll be definitely a nice addition to the German Air Forces. They can get their first Rank VI jet. Now the one thing I am curious about is, as with all aircraft, whenever you have air-to-ground ordnance, it'll definitely slow you down and make you more vulnerable to attack. As I've seen firsthand while playing the MiG-17 to grind the MiG-19 out, I've seen a handful of F-100s make some ground attack runs, either with a bunch of Hydras or their 10 750-pound bombs, and they are just slowed down by that massive load. Now, will the MiG-19 be as hampered as much as the F-100 when it comes to air-to-ground ordnance, or will it maintain a nice and decent speed? There's only one way to find out, and we'll find out in update 1.87. So I'm definitely interested to see how the MiG-19S will perform for the German teams, and how it will affect the meta for Rank 6 jets as a whole. But anyway, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're enjoying the video so far. I really enjoyed making the MiG-19 video, even though it took me a little while to get around to it. But I really love this jet. It is a ton of fun to fly, and I definitely recommend you get it along with the F-100. But anyway, that is it for today's video. Have a great day. Stay safe. Peace out. Victory.